Welcome, everybody. This is the KubeVirt community meeting, July 8th, 2020. First up on the agenda, turn it over to Roman to talk about Slack channels.
Hi, as probably most of you know, we have the virtualization Slack channel on Kubernetes Slack, right? And I think this channel is already pretty well established also for user-related questions or general usage questions on KubeVirt. But we have a lot of things to discuss also regarding to development. And I think one thing why we didn't promote it in the past so much as also developer-focused channel is because I think it would just simply be too much to combine users and developers there. And so I asked the Kubernetes community team if we could have another Slack channel. And the result is the KubeVirt dev Slack channel, which is absolutely clearly owned by us. And I think this could be a good place for us to also talk about pretty much anything related to development, including the high traffic topic flaky tests, so that we can, so I mean, you know that, I'm not sure who's in the meeting, but you know that many of us are from Red Hat, and since there was no dev channel, we were doing a lot of this in a lot of communication in the closed chat which we have, which is not per se bad, but it would of course be better to have a more general channel too. And I would propose to make this the channel for us.
Awesome. So this is in difference of the currently existing virtualization channel is just more general and not really exclusive to us, even though we've kind of crashed the party. So this is basically exclusively being that it has our name in it, where we should be doing all our chatter from now on.
Yeah. So regarding to the history, it was created out of a common effort from different parties which were interested in virtualization solutions on Kubernetes. So most importantly, it was created as a common effort with the Virtlet people, so kubelet and Virtlet. But Virtlet for a long time already has its own channel, and I think is right now also abandoned. But so we're effectively right now the only virtualization solution left there. But still, if you think about just doing all, just directing all developer talks there, I think is not good. It would just be too much high traffic and not good for already joined users. And I would propose the second channel to move the traffic there, and actually doing so actively.
Perfect, works for me. All right, and so the next topic, picking up from previous meeting, is this you, Edward?
No, it's me.
Daniel, commit message standards. I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. So I think that maybe 2 weeks ago, I proposed, at least raised the idea of somehow not allowing empty commit messages in the project. And I did some reading on the internet to see if there are tools, open source tools that or standards that will actually allow us to implement something like this. And I found, I will post it on the chat. I found the conventional commits standard, and there are linters that actually implement it. I would really appreciate if you could, it doesn't have to be exactly now, but generally the idea is that we structure our commit messages and we prefix it, at least the title, with the type of the commit, if it is a fixed feature, a breaking change, or stuff like that. Then as an option, we can also specify the component that we are working on. So for example, fix in API or fix in Virt handler, something like that, and then a short description. The major benefit, I read all the spec, and I'm not sure that we need all of it, but The major benefit of it is that it have all the tooling around it to allow us to lint and enforce this thing. Yeah, but of course, we will not add anything without anything like this without raising it in front of the community first.
Sure. So the action item here is for us to look at this tool and see if it works for us.
No, not to the tool. First of all, I wanted to hear what do you, maybe someone is aware of this convention or have experience with it. If there are any objections to this effort entirely, and someone prefer empty commits, I don't know.
At least something should be said.
I saw, I briefly looked at that, and it looks like it tries to follow a different standard, which pretty much took, I mean, I used it in a different project, and the changelog one. That one defines how you should write the changelog, what you should put there, and what is its format. Looks like this one is trying to use that rules that are there to put it in the commit. So I'm guessing in order to be able to parse the commits and then build the changelog, or maybe something like that.
Yes, it is another benefit of it, but
It looks like the only thing that I mean, what it enforces is to have in the first line topic dot subject, something like that, which I always like to do. The only thing that I have a little bit of a problem with is that they enforce some of the types in the topic. They enforce some things that are I'm not used to, but I'm not that I mean, I'm not that against it, but it's weird, like having to have on each commit fix or refactor or stuff like that. It's a bit weird. I usually use there in the first in the topic part. I usually use the scope, which means which file or which, like if it's a test or if it's a subcomponent or stuff like that, then I write like a very small subject for it. I don't use the types, but if you all think that it is it's okay, it's good, I will not be the one who reject it.
yeah, just the most important thing in this in this tool is that it will allow us it will allow us to enforce the enforce rules on the commit message body. I know that the spec says that it is optional, but the linters around it allow us to define that someone has, for example, has to write the body, which is what I would like to see in the project.
Does there exist a Git plugin to make this easier, or is it just something we're going to have to remember that you have to type in both lines?
Yeah, okay. So about the Git plugin. So there is a way to configure, we can use Git hooks. This will allow us to, like, it will be, it will have to be another make target. Like, at least at the first time when the developer or someone clones the project, he will have to run something like make configure commit message hook, and it will configure his commit message hook. And then when he will write git commit, it will show the template of the commit message. This is because we're using GitHub, and it does not allow us to add commit message hooks in the repository.
Let me add here. So I personally am on the project for a very long time, and I did have the feeling that much needs to improve here. I was pretty happy with the PR templates, and the rest would be kind of, yeah, of course, better to do good commits, but I didn't care too much. Why do you guys think it's needed now?
Mostly because I want to see the stuff from the Git log. And honestly, I don't have a problem if we could enforce something on the PR body, like on the PR description, but we don't do it either. So at least I can say that sometimes I read something, I try to understand why something works like it works. And, you know, in KubeVirt is a quite complex project. It have a lot of stuff going on in parallel. And then what I try to do, I try to do git blame on some line to see who wrote it, try to see the history. And if you don't have description that explains changes, sometimes it is very hard to reverse engineer something. Not always, but sometimes.
So in this particular, or what we're basically saying though, is that this is specifically about the Git commit message, as opposed to, which would then be copied over into GitHub if you were to open a PR on it, right? But this is, you want to see it specifically in the Git log. Because I'll tell you personally, I used Git formatting of pretty equals medium, so it deletes all the second on comments unless I actively look for them. I only see the summary. So that's just my personal approach.
As I said, I don't really mind if it is on the commit message itself or in GitHub. I would prefer it to be in the commit message as well, because eventually the Git log is the tracker for the project and not GitHub. But GitHub is, you know,
I mean, in the
well-known.
merge commit, you see the pull request description too, right? It's not like it's gone.
Yeah, but in many pull requests, it doesn't exist.
No, but the question is, many times this is happening to me because I'm also new. So many times someone put a timer with a value, and I want to know why they use this value. And then I'm trying to look at the commit. And then in the commit, it says I added the timeout. But it doesn't say why they use this timeout or why they configure this part at all. So I don't know what is it used for. I guess you guys know that because you are like started from the beginning, so it's obvious for you, but for someone that comes, and I think now most of the people in the project are coming as new. So that's the multiplication of developers.
So for me, it's I just look on the pull requests or the merge commits because
Yes, but
I mean,
I don't want to get out of my ID.
yeah, it's just like otherwise it's for contributors always a duplication. You have to write it. You basically have to write on the commits what you write on the pull request description again, and
No,
this is kind of I don't like it.
Actually, the way I'm working, I usually write everything that I want to write in the commit message. And then if it's a single commit, then it will copy it automatically to the pull request. If it's two, then I just copy them from my log and to that. So I'm writing it before it gets to the pull request, and then I have everything. So that, I think if we are okay with recording the history of what we do and why we do it in the Git log, then it will be passed to the PR, just copy pasting. I don't think we should. I have a problem with the fact that that there is a notion of GitHub being the history of the project, because it may happen that you will want to move the project from GitHub. It's like you're not married with it. And recently it's even unstable, but even if you stay with it for 10 years, I still want not to get out of my ID, and I still want to develop in the airplane when I'll have flights.
So
Yeah,
it's worth pointing out at this point.
Commits. That's I mean, they're the merge commits. They're still there. That's
I'd
what
like to
I think is-
highlight at this point that we have 4 different people speaking on this topic and 4 completely different opinions on what needs to be done. We have one person saying everything needs to be in GitHub. One person saying, I'm not so concerned about that, but I do want to see it. Excuse me. One person wants to see it in Git. One person wants to see it definitely in GitHub. One person's a little bit ambivalent, and I squash it all. So like we have four completely different approaches to what our own personal workflow.
Let me just add here that I didn't say that I want it in GitHub. All I mean is that there are merge commits, and the merge commits contain the info too.
That's what I meant. So
maybe
I'm just trying to summarize. Sorry.
Maybe because I started this topic, maybe I can try to help a bit to resolve this. So maybe we can take a step back, and instead of going the whole way from having something on GitHub to enforcing some structure of commit message and enforcing it, maybe we could at least ensure that we as maintainers or whoever reviews and approves changes, we ensure that at least the template that we require on GitHub is fulfilled. Because on many PRs, I see that this template is just being deleted and there are even no description in GitHub.
I can definitely sign off on that.
Yeah, I don't know why many people are just deleting it, because it's always there when you create the pull request. But yes, so that would be also my only requirement. That's why we have the template there. And I personally don't like, I mean, there are different styles on how you create a pull request. Some create one big pull request, one big commit, others create 10 very small ones. And then having a lot of, how should I say, a lot of rules which are actually up to taste on how these messages should be formatted or how informative they should be. I'm always against any kind of rules there. I prefer to have not many rules, but enforce them. So that's me.
And I think the general problem is, I agree with you in that normally every commit should be meaningful so that it explains what it does, right? I think we all can agree on that. But actually, the point is, I think it's up to the reviewer to check whether it says what it does. So I'm not sure if ruling on this helps somehow. So I would also be against enforcing some ruling. For example, have some fix whatever typo, which would be fine with one line. Against then have another body, for example, yeah, I fixed the typo. I don't know whether that helps. Actually, I don't know what problem we can solve with this set of rules we are going to apply.
Yeah, so I agree. I mean, there can be a completely meaningless commit message, and it may look like it's correct from the rules, which we automatically enforce. So I'm really not
yeah,
sure
absolutely. But it at least will raise the bar, at least up to a point where.
From my perspective, we raise it on the things which don't matter, but that's probably up to taste, and that's the main thing. This is up to taste.
Yeah, I think that it matters a lot, but okay.
I think that it would be at least reasonable to look at what the conventional commits say, and whether we choose to do tooling to enforce it or just say, hey, that's a good idea. We can at least investigate what they are.
I will be glad if the simple request of, if I do a change and it merits an explanation why I did the change, this part is recorded. So if it's a spelling, I understand why it's needed. I don't need an explanation. If it's because one used double equal or single equal, and that's the bug, even that does not need an explanation. But I will say that 80%, maybe even 90% of the cases, it requires the why. And this is what is missing, in my opinion, in most cases. And I would be glad if someone will, if you see a commit, if you check that part, that it is says
we have on the template, on each PR's automatic template, we have a section that says explain why this commit is needed. So exactly. I think that what we all agree here, at least how I see it, is that we should at least enforce that this part exists on non-trivial changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, like I said, the problem is how can I enforce that? How does a rule know whether it's
Not
a
a rule.
reasonable change or something?
I would
Well,
imagine that this is up to like Daniel said a few minutes ago. Make the or make it part of doing the review. Is if it's profoundly obvious why there's a change, you don't need to ask for an explanation section. If it's not instantaneously obvious, like oh it's a typo, then maybe the reviewer should just simply say hey we need to fill that section out.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good enough, and it's not too big of a change, I think. We just need to announce it to the community and ask for the reviewers to enforce it.
Sounds good.
So that
Okay.
would just be filling out the template, basically.
Yeah, filling out the template that we have for non-trivial
fine.
changes.
Yeah.
You will still see me commenting that I want it in a commit message. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just if I review it, I don't care.
Yeah, the thing is that we need to like to decide what we do as a project, and sometimes, yeah, if a project goes with one way, we can't go against it, and it is maybe what I'm trying to say is that if
What I can tell you is I have heard from so far, I mean, I'm a few years in the project. I have heard it's so far from a few people that they would prefer to have better commit messages and so on. That, I mean, we're really talking about less than 5 people compared to a lot of contributors, right? So it didn't sound too critical for me. And I've heard some concerns from people which were not actively working on the project. So Edward and now you, Daniel, you two are by far the most pushing people so far. And for 99% of the people in the project, they never said anything about it. So that's what I can say. And I mean, I see not taking too much attention put on commit messages on most GitHub projects, even big ones.
Okay, I think that we can probably move on to the next topic here, unless there's any closing thoughts that somebody has. All right, I don't know who wrote the next line, but this is talking about code in the describe and context body in Ginkgo.
That is me, so I'll make it quick. I just got into some kind of in trouble because it looks like in the tests, in the Ginkgo tests, there is a lot of executed code inside the describe and context bodies. And that's usually it's also mentioned in the Ginkgo that it is not desired to have it. And it actually causes some problems. So one of the problems is that it's I would say it's more or less like writing code in the init function. So the example that I got stuck in today was that if someone it's regarding the flags and parsing them. So if you do write code in that body and you did not parse yet the arguments, it causes you a lot of pain. So if it's agreeable that we will try not to write code in that body ever, and if there is need to write code, just write it in the before each, before all, and sections. And you can define if you want global, like in most cases that I saw, is just declare the variable and then populate it inside this function, this before function.
So you're saying, and I guess that's good that you just clarified. You mean that if you're writing bare code inside of the function or the describe or context or even it,
oh, it is okay.
Before you do a before each, like the only thing I would imagine I ever put there is like a variable declaration, which does make sense. But you're saying putting actual code there?
Yeah. There is a lot of code. So there, it's okay to have to declare the variable. That is, it's actually needed. But to write code that, for example, goes and creates objects and then parses the flags and tries to, there is a lot
So,
of code that actually is executed there. So
so
that's
what I see a lot is that we are getting the client into the scribe already,
yes.
but
This
that's
is
pretty
what
much it.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
what I'm fixing now. But it's
Okay,
not
yeah.
only the client, because sometimes you get the client and then you define many lambdas after,
Yeah, but
which
the lambdas are fine. I don't. If lambdas are used between tests, I don't see a reason to define them somewhere else. A lambda is not executed. It's like a
no,
variable.
it's no, but it depends on that client. It depends on many other things. So there is you're right. It's not executed, but because it's dependent on the others that are executed, it also need to go either in
So,
functions or go into the before.
so regarding to the virtual client, I am for pragmatic solutions. It depends on how convenient this will be.
So
For any other code, I agree. We don't want any other code there. But lambdas and virt client, I didn't really see them as a problem.
yeah, well, I don't have a problem with lambdas. The problem with lambdas is only when they depend on this other stuff.
I have,
Yeah, as said,
I have,
depends on
sorry.
how convenient it will be. If it's an improvement, sure. If it makes it convoluted, maybe not. But in
Before?
general, I agree with you.
I have a general question. Why are we using lambdas? Can we use just a function? Is there any reason why?
It's also possible. I guess it's up to the test writer if they prefer lambdas or not.
Okay.
It's very often, like Edward said, that they do something in context of defined variables. If it, I mean, I talked with Edward about a very ugly example today, where it can definitely make me nicer. But I guess
I think that the lambdas are okay, and they are usually used when you need something from the upper context. So when you want to, it's like really generating a function. So when it depends on something from outside that you want to take in, then it makes sense. But if not, then it for sure it doesn't should not be a lambda. And in case it's and then you can ask, do you want to pass it an argument or not? But that's a different question. Anyway, my main problem, and this is what I wanted to raise here, is if you see that people are editing or adding code in that section, in that body, please stop them, because it may look like a copy paste. This is, I think, most of the people, what they did, they just copy paste the existing, and the existing is not that good and causes some problems. I will fix it, I hope, until tomorrow, hopefully, because I need it for something else. But I just wanted to raise it here, so to make sure that I'm not doing first something wrong, and that if I'm doing it, if it's correct, then just to try to avoid it the next time.
Well, I think it's a question of scope. When you're doing something in the module definition, it's basically executed at module definition time once. But like a before each, for instance, is before every test. And so if you're doing things to set up the environment for your tests, obviously there's an appropriate place and an inappropriate place for the code.
Yeah, so I think that the main problem with writing the code in that body, or even at the variable definition, right? It's like pre-main. Then the problem there is that this code, this is something that is not clear. This code is running before main. So this is the problem. So and you, for example, when you are not supposed to execute code before the parsing of the, for example, of the flags, of the command line flag. And usually the command line flags are executed at main by the test runner or someone. So what happened here was that they just ran the parsing a million times for each file in that context. Anyway, it's too much details. I think we are in sync here.
Yeah.
Usually
I think it's really only the virt client, and I'm fine with replacing that in the lambdas with something else instead of this, for instance. Yeah. And for, yeah.
Okay. With that, is there anything, any other topics somebody would like to raise today? All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Thanks, all. See you
Bye.
later.